Hello, everyone. We're in Phoenix. It's Leilani Cotton, your host. Phoenix and Buckeye Union are hosting us today. Dr. Scott Menzel from Scottsdale Unified here to speak with us today. I'm super excited because this is the first time I got to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. So we're excited to hear from him today. Let's hear what he has to say.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about Scottsdale Unified School District. And Leilani told me that I could also do some Q&A, which is my favorite thing to do. So I will move through this fairly quickly. And many of you are familiar with Scottsdale Unified, but for those who aren't, we're a school district in the east side of the valley that serves about 20,000 students in 29 buildings and one online school district. And we work every day to live into our values. And so I start with this slide because it's so important for us to talk about what we stand for. We are committed to excellence in all that we do in Scottsdale Unified School District. Integrity, empathy, trust, unity, inclusion, all are a part of what makes Scottsdale Unified School District a special place to work and attend school. During the past school year, we've realized that there's a whole lot on the plate of teachers and principals and superintendents and school boards related to community expectations for, what is school supposed to do and how do we know whether or not we've been successful? Some people think success is measured by test scores. I would argue that test scores are an important indicator, but they're not the true measure of whether or not an education has been successful. But we realize that there are so many data points. We needed to focus our efforts. And the governing board identified 3 wildly important goals to help us focus our efforts. And you'll see how they're interrelated. When we look at our data, math has been a particular area of concern. It's secondary more so than elementary, but still an area of concern. So we have a wildly important goal around mathematics achievement. We also know, like we've seen in the data across the nation, attendance has been a problem post-pandemic. And there's a direct correlation between attending school regularly and our achievement scores that we see in math. And then the third, from a financial perspective, is that our budget is driven by our average daily membership, the number of students who are enrolled and how regularly they're coming to school during that first 100 days in Arizona. So they all interrelate. If you are producing higher levels of educational success, more parents are going to be interested in enrolling in your school district, but you're not going to get to the higher levels of success if kids aren't coming to school. So then we begin to unpack that a little bit to say, what does it mean? How do we get more kids to come to school regularly? So the conversation with our principals and with our teachers is how do we create a sense of FOMO, the fear of missing out? How do we ensure that our learning environments are so engaging that kids are begging their parents to make sure they don't miss school or that they're not late? I had an opportunity to come to one of my elementary schools where a second grade class had perfect attendance for 16 consecutive days. They had created a song celebrating their perfect attendance. They were doing everything they could because the environment was so engaging that they wanted to be there. So when you think about post-pandemic, some of the things that we've been focusing on, as a district, we've bucked state and national trends, and part of that is probably a result of living in a relatively affluent community. While we have pockets of poverty and we are a diverse school district, I would argue that we are blessed with a very supportive community that has invested in our schools, and it gives us some opportunity to do things differently than maybe some other school districts that don't have the same resources. That doesn't mean we don't have our challenges and problems, but those are some of the things that we're looking at. And we're proud of our data, but we also know that there's so much more that we can accomplish. So this is one slide that I wanted to just focus on. A couple of things that are really important to us as part of our strategic plan is to create a culture of innovation within Scottsdale Unified School District. If we continue to do the things that we've always done, we're going to continue to get the same results. Our frontline staff have all sorts of ideas about what might work if we do it differently, but they also don't often feel supported in trying something new. And that fear of what happens if you try something and it doesn't work keeps creative ideas from germinating and maybe identifying something that could actually be far more effective. So we've set aside funding to support teachers who have ideas that they would like to try. We ask them to identify what their theory of action is. We then fund that based on a competitive process. We start with a bias towards yes. I don't want to start with how might it fail. I want to think about how it might succeed. Tell me what your theory of action is. Tell me what problem of practice you're trying to solve. How will we know if it's successful? And if it's successful, then it's something that we can replicate. So pilot, then scale, if we have the data that supports this is something that works for kids. And so we have funded a number of pilot projects with our innovation grant. Now, in a constrained budget environment, this is one of the things that people want to cut first. I'm going to look for other partners to be able to help invest in innovation within our school system, because we do have to do things differently. And we have teachers who are so creative. They're masters of their craft, but they also know that we have to do things differently to be successful. This is the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and then we'll get into the Q&A. So when we think about artificial intelligence, it's here. It's not something that we can fight or say we're not going to do that. We launched a campaign, Keeping It Real. Research, evaluate, analyze, and lead with respect are what the REAL acronym stands for. In this environment, understanding and knowing misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, being a critical consumer and being able to differentiate. When I look at artificially created images and real images, and I did a test on the Washington Post, I think had, the 10 images to figure out if you could spot where AI had, modified something that was a real photo. It's not always easy. How do our students know what's real and what's not? How do our teachers know what's real and what's not? And what are the implications for us, even as a society, if our students aren't able to differentiate between what's real and what's not real? And so this is a part of our approach to, we're going to teach our students how to use artificial intelligence. We're going to support them in that process, but we want them to be conscious about, the ways in which they're using the technology, and then the ways in which that might be abused or misused. So it's a part of our role as an educational entity to, from early on in elementary all the way through the time they graduate, ensuring that they're asking the right kinds of questions on their learning journey. Our theme is elevating excellence, establishing or reaching new heights together. And that's the other part. We are not 29 separate school buildings, although sometimes we feel like islands. We are one district with one goal, and that is to elevate excellence. And what I told my staff on the back to school rally was that every day represents a new opportunity to elevate excellence. On any given day, I can stub my toe and not bring my very best, but the next day gives another new opportunity. That's true for our students as well. Depending on what's happening at their home life, depending on the frustration they might be feeling, it might not have been a good day. But tomorrow represents another opportunity to elevate excellence, and we want to create this culture of elevating excellence every day, commitment to innovation, and then working to help ensure that our students are critical consumers of information so they can navigate the world of the future. And with that, I'd be happy to talk about anything that we're doing in Scottsdale Unified School District and what might be of interest to you as we think about what the future holds for public education.
So obviously one of my questions is I mentioned structure a lot, and then I'll let other people ask questions, but I mentioned structure because time AI is set to change how we structure from a manufacturing pattern to more like Uberizing by small group,
Right.
Same point, right? So the teacher's job is not stuck in the classroom, they're roaming. And they're having meetings and then roaming and then meetings and then roaming. Structure, I feel, is the untouched wilderness, if you will. I love the innovation that you're doing in the classroom level, but what are you really wanting to innovate up there at the structural level? Because that's where the pain is.
Yeah, I appreciate that question.
Okay.
And it's one that we've been working to tackle. I'll name something that I've set out as a goal for my people, and I'm looking for just one building principal to take me up on it, and that is to create a 4x5 model. And it's not the end of the equation, but it's the beginning. And what I mean by that is we have to, for our families, provide 5 full days of instruction. In Scottsdale, that's the expectation. Even when we increase the number of early releases during COVID to provide more time for teachers, the parents are like, no, our kids need to be in school 5 full days. So what's not negotiable is we're going to have 5 full days of instruction. When I say 4x5, I want to create a structure change that allows my teachers to provide direct instruction, however that's formulated, 4 days of the week, and create a freed up 5th day. And that could be a combination of 2 partial days. It could be 1 full day. But I want them to have 20% of the work week where they can be doing the work of professional learning, building and doing student-centered planning. The things that they now do on evenings and weekends, I want them to be able to have that built into their schedule. You talked about the teacher shortage and how do we attract and retain teachers. If we don't create some sanity in their life by freeing up time, we won't be able to keep them. And so when I talk to my teachers about creating this model where they're doing direct instruction for 80% of the time and we've freed up a day a week, they're all in. The problem is people haven't conceptualized how do we break the mold of one teacher per 30. I like the work that ASU is doing on the next education workforce, thinking about a team of teachers sharing a roster of kids because you can mix and match differently. But the power of AI and the power of technology is that we really can approach this very differently. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we were talking about personalizing learning. We can do that at scale because of what AI offers us. But that means we have to give our teachers the space to even learn how to utilize the technology. So our goal structurally is to think about a 4x5 model so we create some sanity for teachers.
I like it. Okay, so any other questions over here? You guys want to ask him something? Chris, I know you have a question. Fellow superintendent, what are your thoughts?
Mostly, I want you to elaborate a little more on what you guys are doing to retain and recruit teachers in Scottsdale.
So
have you gotten intentional with it? Very much so, or not?
So it's a balancing act, and in Scottsdale, we because the voters have supported our M&O override, we have supplemental resources that some other school districts don't. From a special education perspective, we're working on rolling something out new this year. We spend way too much on contracted services. So we have stipends that'll be proposed going into next year that'll be between $8,000 and $15,000 to fill certain hard to fill positions, because we believe if we hire the people and they're our employees, they're going to be far more invested in the success of their students and our system. So that's one of the things that we're doing intentionally. We're focusing on how we can mitigate the impact of cost increases for health insurance, because that's also a challenge for us in this environment. But it's really that work-life balance. So much is on a teacher's plate. They are juggling so many things, and post-pandemic, everybody's an expert criticizing anything that they might say. So the occupational hazard in this environment of everyone being a critic of what you might say that could offend someone makes it really difficult for our teachers. And what I'm trying to do is to say, we want you to invest in kids. At the end of the day, it's about being seen, heard, and valued. When students feel seen, heard, and valued, and a part of a meaningful learning environment, and teachers feel the same, right? They need to feel seen, heard, and valued by their building administrator, by the leadership within the district. That makes a difference. So we want to create healthy culture and climate on every campus where our teachers know that they're valued as well. Their time is valuable. I think about it this way. As a superintendent, I have a lot of flexibility in terms of choosing where I'm going to be, when I'm going to be there. Teachers tethered to the classroom. They don't even get to use the bathroom except for certain periods of time, right? It's a very different dynamic. Why does it have to be that way? Can we shift our environments to make it something that's really more practical and validates them and their agency while still holding high expectations for both our students and our staff?
That's excellent. No, it's excellent. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the innovate concept? Maybe an example of what went really well that exceeded our expectations, or an example of where you ran into some challenges and what you did to overcome some of those challenges?
I think it's a good question. I wish I could give you all of the specifics, because we're in year 2 of that implementation process, and the initial projects were pretty small, and we wanted to invest in them because we wanted to get the process moving. I think it's hard for teachers to think big because they're so worried about what those implications might be. One of the things that we funded this year, so we're really early in the process, but we think it holds a lot of potential, is working with TeachFX to be able to assist second-year teachers in reflecting on their professional practice. So if you don't know what TeachFX is, it's the teacher recording their interactions in the classroom. And the system is calibrated to the teacher's voice, and then determines how much time did the teacher spend in direct instruction, how much time was spent in student engagement, how much time was spent in group work versus individual. Did you call on the same person all of the time? Or, so you get that kind of reflection, but in a non-evaluative way. So if a principal is walking in and doing an evaluation, that has a certain feel to it. TeachFX is not evaluative. it's anonymous in the sense that it's not going anywhere except for the teacher for feedback. And we believe that it might, by using that technology, help teachers engage in reflective professional practice so that they can elevate their game.
Fantastic. What kind of feedback have you gotten from the community about these programs so far?
So we get a mixed bag. Some are really excited that we're looking at innovation and how we can do things differently. And then there are a subset that are always concerned about, the technology and how it's being used, and, what are you doing with that data? Well, that data is anonymized, so it's nothing that can be tied to a particular student. And, we remind them that we're under the federal law, FERPA doesn't allow us to release information on your student. But there's a healthy subset of our community that wants to know the answers to those questions. But the majority of people want us to innovate so that we can accelerate achievement for students.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, so other questions, you guys? We have a couple more minutes. What do you think? This was awesome having him out here today. What do we think? Anybody? Just say that on camera.
I'm a proud legacy graduate.
A legacy. She has her legacy pin today from SU.
Go, Julie. Well, yeah, legacy. Oh, Scottsdale, yeah.
Acadia High School.
Pretty place, right? Okay, well, this has been awesome. I would want you to give one last piece of advice. Now you're speaking to the country. Like there's a lot of people in your same position that are my readership, a lot of people that are other levels of administration. What would you say to them? I mean, everybody's undergoing the same challenges, right? The onslaught of alternatives and the trends change. We're in a moment that is very trying. What do you want to tell them, your fellow leader? Like, how do they keep standing up every day with a smile on their face?
So what I would say is that there are a lot of people who are against a lot of things, and we hear a lot of noise every day about the things people are against, what they want to remove. And what I would say to my colleagues is that we have to be very clear about what we're for, what we stand for. Every day, our students and their success, that each and every one of them is of immeasurable value and worth, and they need to feel seen, heard, and valued. And that our learning environments in our public schools are places where everyone feels included in a sense of belonging. We have to be crystal clear on our why. For us in Scottsdale, it's because kids. Every day, it's because kids. And so you have all of the noise, all of the hostility, the negativity, the people who are against things, want to remove things. I'll say embrace diversity. It is, and it's a good thing. I will say embrace equity of opportunity, right? It's not equal outcomes for kids. It's about leveling the playing field because they don't all come to us with the same assets. And inclusion is something that we should embrace as well. So while people want to weaponize the DEI, I will say let's define diversity, equity, and inclusion and lean into it, because those are core values that mean our students are going to be able to have an opportunity to achieve their full potential.
Awesome. I also like the idea that, what I'm really stuck on is the community idea. Is I really believe schools have been the little hub of the network of humanity in the area. And, it's how parents meet other parents and their kids are friends, and everybody comes together, right? We have church attendance is way down in the United States, and schools have become those community creators. How willing are you to be that for the entire community, to cause that to come in, whether they want to go somewhere else to school or not? I mean, I feel that this is part of the demand, and it will be the stability of traditional education if we continue it as a tradition. What are your thoughts?
So I agree. The engagement with the community, both our parents and the larger community, is absolutely essential. And we're a part of the community fabric. When you think about Scottsdale, we are a destination for people who are coming to party or to vacation or to experience the Waste Management Phoenix Open or any number of other spring training. You think about all the reasons why people will come to Scottsdale, beautiful place. But when you live in our community, when you're a graduate of our schools, you've had an opportunity to go through a school system that has a 128-year history of success. It's been a part of the fabric of Scottsdale since Chaplain Winfield Scott founded us in 1896. And that is the only way that we'll survive into the future, is by thinking more broadly than just the four walls of the schoolhouse. And it's not about parents dropping kids off and then we'll take care of the rest. This is a partnership. It's about engaging together thoughtfully about how we elevate excellence for our students and creating a common vision for where we go from here. that's part of the challenge in this environment, I think, is you have a narrative that's targeting public education and talking about all the things that aren't working. And so much is working very, very well. Our students are graduating and going to the top universities. We have D1 athletes. We have performing artists that go on to Broadway and do amazing things in the world. There's no shortage of opportunity. And yet there's this undercurrent that wants to devalue the role of public education. And I would say that while our role has shifted in some respects, at the end of the day, our students learn how to live and work in community that's very diverse. A community that comes from all sorts of walks of life and backgrounds. And they can learn then how to be successful as they take leadership roles in the future.
Excellent. Well said. Okay, so we give him a big round of applause. Thank you, Dr. Menzel. That was awesome. Thank you very much.